My youngest aunt was the most notorious woman in our entire family. Grandpa and Grandma worked hard to raise her, put her through school, and even arranged a marriage for her, yet she cut ties with them and ran away from home. Mom often told me, when you grow up you must be filial, never end up like your youngest aunt. Back then no one could have imagined that when I grew up I'd be even more ruthless than my aunt. One at Grandpa's funeral I met Auntie for the first time. As soon as she appeared, whispers spread among the banquet guests. "Is that Janet? How come?" she asked back. "It's been so many years, I thought she was dead." Her tone was laced with disdain, contempt, and schadenfreude, as if my aunt were a fugitive criminal who shouldn't have returned. Yet I roughly understood the reason behind it. My aunt's name is Janet, the youngest daughter of my grandparents and my father's biological sister. But she had left home before I was born, and I'd never met her before. My impression of her came almost entirely from my grandmother's daily bitter grumblings. I worked my fingers to the bone, raising her, selling rice and flour to pay for her schooling, then arranging her marriage to the finest young man in 10 villages. What other mother would have treated her so well? And how does the ungrateful wretch repay me? She accuses me of trying to sell her off, then runs away without a word, even threatening to cut ties with me. Ah, such bitter fate. I suffer, worn to the bone, raising a viper that bites the hand that feeds it. If I'd known then what I know now, I should be strangled her at birth or aborted her, better never to have brought her into this world. Which is to say, my aunt had run away from home and intended to sever ties with my grandparents, an act that was nothing short of scandalous in rural society at the time. The villagers placed great importance on filial piety, and every one of them regarded my aunt as a disgrace. They often comforted my grandmother, saying, "Such an unfilial child will surely be struck by lightning sooner or later. Just pretend you never had this daughter, and don't let anger ruin your health." My aunt was gone for 8 long years. No one knew where she had gone, what she was doing, or even whether she was dead or alive. It wasn't until my grandfather died suddenly of a cerebral infarction that she finally returned just once. But no one welcomed her. What awaited her was a storm of hostility. The first to charge forward was my father. He grabbed Auntie by the collar and slapped her hard across the face. Shouting at the top of his voice, he cursed, "Janet, didn't you cut ties with Dad? Now you come back pretending to care. Do you think he didn't suffer enough? Get out, get the hell out of here. You're not welcome." Auntie covered her face and remained silent for a long while. I thought she would cry secretly, but in fact her expression was very calm, as if she had long expected this to happen. Auntie didn't hit her, but inexplicably began wiping her tears with her apron, crying so hard she could barely catch her breath. "Little sister, you've finally come back all these years. Mom and Dad missed you terribly. Your second brother was just speaking in anger. Don't take it to heart. Come, let us go inside and talk as a family." Only later did I understand why they had done this. One plays the good cop, the other the bad cop, intimidating the guests so the family's reputation wouldn't be tarnished. As for the trial of my aunt, it had only just begun. After the evening banquet ended, the family sat together for a meal, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. My parents, grandmother, and eldest aunt took turns berating my younger aunt, scolding her mercilessly. It essentially meant she was unfilial, bringing shame upon the family, and deserved to be beaten to death. Now that Grandma was still willing to take her back, she should be grateful beyond measure. I always took adults' words with a grain of salt, but my younger brother didn't. Only 3 years old, he imitated the adults by pointing at our aunt and scolding, "You're bad, unfilial." I shushed him with a finger to my lips, telling him not to speak nonsense. Then Mom told me to take my little brother aside to play, while they continued their judgment of Auntie. When country folk turn vicious, they spare no feelings. Their words become as foul as sewage, all of it hurled at Auntie. Back then I also learned a saying from my other, and no parents are ever in the wrong. What followed was, no matter how much you resent them, you shouldn't cut ties with your parents. Without them, where would you be? Has your conscience been eaten by dogs? Her tone was domineering, and my aunt didn't argue back. Only after 2 hours had passed, after everyone had vented their anger and finished scolding, did my silent aunt finally pull out a stack of money from her bag and place it on the table. "This is what I've managed to save over the years, around 10 or 20,000. Some of it is for the funeral expenses, and some is for Mom's living costs." He said, "I was guilty, didn't you? Well, now I'm atoning for it." Grandma's eyes gleamed as she clutched the bills, inspecting them under the light for a long while before her icy expression gradually softened. Then I tentatively asked my aunt, "Just 19,000, no more? After all these years working away, you must have some savings left. Don't hold back on us now." My aunt lit a cigarette, stayed silent for a moment, then turned her head and let out a dry laugh. "Oh, I've got debts, 20 or 30,000 in loans still unpaid, and rent overdue. If big sister or second brother have money to spare, I could borrow some to settle those right away. From now on I'll keep in touch more often, really show my gratitude for this sibling bond of ours." My parents and eldest aunt turned pale upon hearing this and quickly changed the subject. "We're struggling too, little sister. How could we possibly help you? Mom, really having 10 or 20,000 is already more than enough. Don't pressure her." Auntie slowly exhaled a smoke ring, gave them a cold glance, then turned and walked upstairs. "I've bought a train ticket back to Guangdong for tomorrow. No time to keep you company, and I won't embarrass you further. No need to see me off." Grandma suddenly thought of something and hurriedly chased after her. "Janet, before you leave, make a copy of my agricultural bank card number and medical insurance card number. You don't need to send too much each month from now on. Just 2 or 3,000 will do, dear." Bang! Aunt slammed the door shut. The living room, which had been noisy just moments ago, instantly fell into silence. Back then, 10,000 yuan was actually quite a substantial sum. My parents and eldest aunt were fingering the banknotes one by one, muttering under their breath, "Look at how she's dressed, just a factory girl. How did she save up so much money? Could she have been doing that kind of work out there?" Then they suddenly withdrew their hands, as if the money was dirty. But after my youngest aunt left, they had no qualms about dividing the money among themselves, stuffing a whole bag full of it. It's quite funny really, when my aunt left no one actually saw her off. Only I caught a glimpse of her back as I went to the outhouse at dawn. The weather was so cold that I couldn't bear it, so I put on my shoes and ran after her, calling out from behind Auntie. With a backpack on her shoulders, she slowly turned her head as her feet trod the muddy morning road. Her gaze held a hint of confusion when she looked at me. "Your second brother-esque girl, Catherine." She knew of me, though we weren't acquainted. I nodded and took her hand. Unsure what to say in that moment, and never one for sentimentality, I simply offered a newly learned auspicious phrase. "Have a safe journey, Auntie." The corners of her lips curved as she smiled softly, then suddenly remembering something, she fished out a few candies from her pocket. "I brought these back from my trip. I meant to give them to you earlier, but forgot. Catherine, study hard when you get back, get into a university in the big city someday, and Annie will take you traveling." I was delighted. "Great, so, where are you now, Auntie?" She smiled and said, "I'm in Shanghai." I lied to them about being in Guangdong. "I'm only telling you this. Shanghai is huge, and so much fun, Catherine. Don't limit your horizons to just a small mountain village." It wasn't until much later that I learned my aunt was working as a salesperson at a clothing company in Shanghai at that time, while also preparing for her adult college entrance exams. She never gave up on striving for better, nor did she ever stop learning. And she was the first person in my life who encouraged me to study hard. I solemnly promised her, "All right, then we'll meet in Shanghai, Auntie." After Auntie left, I took those few candies back home. But in the end, not a single one came to me. Mom gave them all to my younger brother while pretending to be considerate by putting a bite of vegetables in my bowl. "Catherine, too much sugar rots your teeth, and girls who eat too much get fat. Let us have more vegetables, okay?" I felt upset, but the thought of getting slapped by Dad for making a face during dinner made me swallow my tears. Mom heard that I had just seen Annie off, and sure enough, she started testing me again. Just like countless times before when she used Annie to warn me, she said with a smile, "Catherine, don't you think your aunt is such a strange person? You wouldn't just run off without a word and ignore us like her, would you?" I already knew the standard answer by heart and replied expressionlessly, "Of course not." She asked again, "Then will you love your younger brother in the future? Will you help buy him a house? And will you give the betrothal gifts to Mom and Dad when you get married?" I was only 8 years old at the time and barely understood what betrothal gifts even were. How could she bring this up? But of course I could only reply yes. Satisfied, my mother dropped the subject and patted my head. "That's right, my dear mother, hasn't he spoiled you for nothing? Just don't learn from your aunt, who doesn't he laugh at her now when she mentioned." I ate without tasting, stealing glances at my brother as he munched on candies beside me. Chocolates, crispy centers, cream filled, they must all be delicious. Those were clearly given to me by Auntie. I don't think my aunt is as awful as they make her out to be. I actually quite like her. For my aunt's return caused quite a stir in the village. For several days everyone was gossiping about our family affairs. My grandmother, who cares most about saving face, now walks around the village boldly, without a care. Well, my youngest daughter came back and gave me 20 or 30,000 yuan. I actually feel a bit embarrassed about it. A mother is still a mother. After all, she couldn't bear to cut ties with me completely. No need for certain people to worry about it. At first the villagers didn't believe her, so Grandma kept pestering them to recount what happened that night, her face glowing with pride, though of course she exaggerated the details. She even boasted that from then on her youngest daughter had changed, promising to send her money every month and take good care of her in old age. She fantasized about all this, yet never once stopped to consider whether her youngest daughter was struggling or happy out there in the world. But she soon couldn't laugh anymore, because she discovered her aunt had become unreachable again. The home phone number she'd given was fake. It couldn't connect at all, nor had she sent any more money to Grandma. So Grandma resumed cursing her, "Ungrateful wretch, white-eyed wolf, may you get hit by a car when you go out, may your children be born without anuses." I couldn't understand why a mother could hate her own daughter to such an extent. But in unhappy families this seems to be the norm, just like in our own household. Gradually I grew older, reaching the age of transitioning from elementary to middle school. Back then girls weren't usually sent to school in our village, but the 9-year compulsory education was mandatory, so my parents didn't stop me. Later I scored exceptionally well, ranking among the top students in the county. The principal said attending the local middle school in town might be a waste of my talent, and suggested I study in the city instead. For this he visited my home a full 3 times. "Catherine is a rare talent our village hasn't seen in years. She is bright and quick-witted. If you as parents are willing to invest in her education, she'll surely achieve great things in the future." The principal spoke with earnest persuasion, but my parents couldn't quite grasp it. With just a middle school diploma and an elementary school education between them, having farmed all their lives, they understood the importance of education, just not why it mattered for a girl. My mother shelled peas, her tone awkward. "Principal, you must be joking. A girl just needs to finish middle school before she can go work. What's the point of traveling all the way to the city for school?" The principal grew urgent. "I wouldn't push like this for just anyone, but Catherine is truly bright. She picks up everything instantly with a mind like hers. If she goes to university, she'll earn far more than any factory job could offer." Hearing the word money, my parents' expressions finally showed a flicker of emotion. "How much more? Just how much is it?" The principal held up 5 fingers. "My niece graduated from a normal university and now teaches at the city's top high school. She makes 5,000 a month, not counting bonuses and subsidies." My parents simultaneously drew in sharp breaths. At that time our entire family's combined monthly income was less than 2,000 yuan. The principal said if I wanted to continue studying, he could pull some strings to let me take the independent entrance exam for City Number 1 high school with my abilities. It shouldn't be a problem. If I ranked high enough, I could even apply for tuition exemption. My parents were persuaded by this, and went to discuss it with Grandma that very night. I couldn't sleep well that night thinking my future might change. Because of this I felt both excited and nervous. After a sleepless night of waiting, the conclusion they reached was no. The reason Grandma wouldn't allow it. Her mindset was even more antiquated than Mom and Dada's. She was convinced the principal was bluffing her that girls had no future in education anyway. I thought this wouldn't be an unsolvable problem. Since everything at home is decided by Grandma, I'll just have to find another way to convince her. Until I overheard her whispering behind my back. If she's smart, wouldn't Felix being a boy be even smarter? You should focus all your efforts on raising Felix to make big money. As for Catherine, she can just start working after middle school. Doesn't the garment factory pay a few thousand a month? What's the point of sending her to a good school? It's just a waste of money. My blood ran cold. So this was her scheme all along, and my birth parents agreed to it. I cried, I protested, I even knelt in supplication, but nothing could change my parents' minds. After that I hardly dared to look at the principal, feeling I had failed his well-intentioned efforts. On the day I went to enroll at the town's middle school, my discomfort reached its peak. Because on that very same day, the second-ranked student in our class who had worse grades than me got to attend the city's top high school. It took me a very long time to realize that although he wasn't as smart as me, he was an only son lifted up by the full strength of his family. From the moment my brother was born, I lost that privilege. Mom seemed to feel somewhat guilty too, comforting me by saying, "Don't be too disheartened, Catherine. Mom never went to middle school because of your uncles, and aren't I doing just fine now? Your eldest aunt was the oldest child in the family and didn't even finish elementary school before going out to work, didn't she? Still end up marrying a good husband and having several children. Gold will always shine through. Mom believes you can overcome any hardship. You'll always be the best." I was already 12 years old, yet she still treated me like a child to be coaxed. Was giving up educational opportunities for the sake of their brothers, some kind of medal for them. Not only did they wear it proudly themselves, but they also tried to force it upon my head. But I truly didn't want this kind of life. The junior high school I attended was the best in town, but the students' abilities were still uneven, and the overall quality was rather poor. Such were the students, we had nothing could be done about it. Back then, those who scaled walls to access the internet, arranged secret rendezvous in the Grove, got into fights, or even broke the law, were everywhere. 3 out of the 4 classroom fans were broken, yet repairs were endlessly delayed, making summers unbearably hot. The dormitory squeezed in a full 8 people, so cramped that turning over in bed felt like a luxury. Occasionally, I do wonder if I was being too pessimistic, drowning too deeply in the regret and pain of missing out on City Number 1 high school to the point of losing all motivation to move forward. Until one hazy day, my aunt's words suddenly flashed through my mind. "Study hard, get into a university in the big city someday, and I'll take you out to play." Those words struck my heart like lightning. Shanghai must be beautiful, right? Later I used the school's bulky computer to search for photos of Shanghai and saw the Oriental Pearl Tower, the Bund, the Shanghai World Financial Center, the aquarium. Clean, dreamlike, a completely different world from the small village I lived in. Beautiful hopes are like bubbles, fragile, yet irresistibly intoxicating, giving rise to inexplicable courage. That day I wrote in my diary, with tears streaming down my face, "Someday you must visit the top floor of the Oriental Pearl Tower to see the view. Catherine, start by studying hard from now on." I didn't even have time to think. Aunt left without giving me any contact information. How would I know where she was? How could I tell if her words were true or false? Yet I believed her all the same. Because like her, I was a woman desperate to escape this suffocating family. 6. The principal was right. I was indeed quite smart. With just a little effort, I could rank among the top students in my grade. But being at the top in our small town was a completely different concept from being at the top in the city. If I wanted to get into City Number 1 high school through the entrance exam, I had to push myself even harder. So I studied with even greater intensity, to the point of forgetting meals and sleep. Even on the weekly bus ride back to my hometown, I would pull out my little booklet to memorize ancient poems and English vocabulary. The bus smelled awful and the motion made my stomach churn, but I couldn't bear to put my books down. Because once I get home, I don't have any time of my own anymore. At home I have to take care of my younger brother. It's the task my parents assign me. My brother Felix is 5 years younger than me and just started elementary school this year. He is fairly bright, but he is too playful and can't sit still for long. A problem that should take just a few minutes to explain can somehow stretch into 2 hours with him. One moment he complains his butt itches, the next he says his head hurts. He just can't sit still. As a result, his grades were mediocre, and Mom repeatedly ordered me to boost his scores. At the time I opened my mouth blankly, but I'm not his teacher. Dad, who is sun-drying corn in the yard, snapped impatiently, "You're his elder sister. Must you draw such clear lines? Isn't it only natural for a sister to help her brother?" Yes, he grew up sucking the lifeblood of my eldest aunt. Only those who benefit from the system would take it for granted, wouldn't they? Besides tutoring my younger brother, I had endless household chores to do. Other students might relax at home during vacations, but I never had a moment's rest. From waking at 5 in the morning to lighting the stove and cooking, cutting pig feed in the fields, feeding pigs and poultry, then working in the paddies with my parents, the labor continued until nightfall. When there wasn't too much farm work to do, I still had to wash clothes for the whole family, clean the house, and keep an eye on my little brother to prevent any accidents. My brother was the apple of the family. Once, when he fell from a tree while trying to rob a bird's nest and sprained his ankle, Grandma scolded me for hours. Couldn't you have stopped him? What's the use of having an elder sister like you? I was washing clothes by the well. At that time, how could I possibly have been watching him? But I didn't defend myself. I'd known since childhood that you should never go against Grandma. I just grew increasingly envious of my aunt, who was far away in another land. Had she run away from home all those years ago because she couldn't bear everything about our family, and now that she's left her homeland behind, does she feel free and happy? I couldn't say for sure, but I was gradually coming to understand her choice. Perhaps she wasn't the villain everyone made her out to be. Throughout my 3 years of junior high, I consistently achieved excellent grades. My homeroom teacher at the time had high expectations for me, saying our town had several annual slots for municipal first high school as long as I took the high school entrance exams. Normally there wouldn't be any issues. During the winter break before the exams, I shared this news with my parents, hoping they'd continue supporting my education. But my father lit a roll of dry tobacco and puffed away, while my mother kept her head down knitting. Neither of them spoke a word. After a long silence, my mother finally said, "Catherine, this is something your grandmother must decide. We don't have any objections anyway." So just like 3 years ago, I trailed behind my grandmother, shamelessly wheedling and begging for her approval. Perhaps she had grown older and more soft-hearted, for she simply waved her hand and said, "Do as you please." But before I could rejoice, she added, "But remember, the family only has enough money to support one person. If you want to attend high school, you'll have to figure it out yourself. Don't ask the family for help." The winter wind lashed against my face like a slap. Later during the high school entrance exams, I performed as expected and met the admission score for City No. 1 high school. But because we couldn't afford the tuition and fees, my parents both urged me, "Catherine, maybe you should just give up on school. You know how difficult things are for the family." At that moment, my disappointment in them reached its peak. Why is it that my parents, the people in this world who should support and protect me the most, always end up siding with those who hurt me? I held back my tears and said I would figure it out myself. The town was hiring for summer jobs, so I took my newly issued ID card and found work as a restaurant server, standing from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. I was exhausted to the point of feeling like my soul might leave my body. It took me a full 3 months to barely save up the tuition for my first year of high school and part of my living expenses before I went alone to register at City No. 1 high school. My parents didn't come to see me off, but they secretly slipped me 500 yuan behind Grandma's back, telling me to study hard. I didn't refuse, but the moment I took it, I didn't feel the expected gratitude or happiness. Perhaps I had gradually outgrown the age of needing parental love. My first year of high school was financially strained as city prices were much higher than in our town. To save money, I'd buy the cheapest steamed buns and porridge in the cafeteria, drinking free vegetable soup. When hunger kept me awake at night, I'd secretly get up to gulp down cold water. I'd think whatever it was, as long as it could fill my stomach, it would do. Looking back, now those were truly bitter times. But I still held a glimmer of hope in my heart, because I could still study. As long as I seized the opportunity to study, I could change my fate. Yet reality dealt me another harsh blow. In my first monthly exam, I only scored average results. At that time, there were 1,000 students in our grade, and I ranked around 300. In the second semester of 10th grade, we would be divided into different classes based on performance. If I remained at this ranking, I would definitely be placed in the regular class. This was undoubtedly a heavy blow for me, who had once been a top student. Once again, I fell into confusion. Like many teenage girls, I buried myself in extracurricular novels and magazines. Only those romantic and magnificent stories could temporarily pull me away from the pain of reality. What helped me find my direction again was an article published in a girls' magazine. The article told the story of an unfortunate girl who, after growing up, earned a degree from a prestigious 211 university through adult education exams. I stared at the authoress' name for a long time, unable to calm down. Janet, my youngest aunt. At 9 years old, I carefully read through that article and learned many unknown details about my aunt's past. It turns out her academic performance was even better than mine. She had ranked first in the entire county during the middle school entrance exams. But she wasn't as fortunate as me. After the exams, my grandparents forcibly confined her at home, cutting off all outside contact, causing her to miss the opportunity to attend high school. Her grandparents arranged a marriage for her when she was just 16. The prospective groom wasn't any outstanding candidate, but rather a bedridden cerebral palsy patient who couldn't care for himself. Simply because his family could afford the bride price, her grandparents were ready to sell her off. Later, she struggled tremendously to escape that fate while working to support herself. She used her junior high school education to self-study for an adult college diploma, then progressed to a bachelor's degree, eventually earning a 211 university qualification. This year, she graduated smoothly, entered a foreign company, and now works at a job she loves, completely transforming her destiny. I'm quite certain she was my aunt, not just someone who happened to share her name, because she wrote at the end of the article, "I hope my story can inspire girls to study hard and never limit their horizons to the place they were born. The outside world is vast and wonderful." She had said similar things to me before. That day, I stood by the public phone booth at school and called the magazine editor. "Hello, do you happen to have the contact information for the author, Janet?" The editor was startled by me and said the magazine couldn't disclose authors' private information. But she then kindly added, "If you have any thoughts or insights after reading this authoress work, you can tell me directly, and I'll pass them along for you." I thought for a moment, then, "Could you please tell her my name is Catherine. I'm a student at Linshui City No. 1 high school. If she remembers this name, please send a message to my email. Thank you very much." The editor was puzzled, but still noted down my QQ email address, telling me to wait patiently. I said it was fine. Truth be told, I wasn't entirely expecting a reply. I just wanted my aunt to know that I still remembered her, and that I was grateful to her. To my surprise, 3 days later during computer class, I actually received a new email. What excited me even more was the content of the email. Dear Catherine, I'm so happy to hear from you, and I can't believe you're already in high school. Time flies. How have you been these days? Do you have any worries or difficulties in life or studies? Feel free to reach out anytime. Here's my phone number, XXXX. Annie hadn't forgotten me after all, and she was even willing to stay in touch. I quickly dialed the number from a public phone booth. This number is real. The call connected, and a familiar, gentle voice came through. Hello, is this Catherine? I let out a soft my throat inexplicably tightening. Annie, it's been a full 8 years now. 11. I leaned against the phone booth and talked with Annie for a long time, pouring out bits and pieces of everything that had happened over the years. She said she was doing just fine, but seemed quite indignant about what had happened to me. They refused to pay her tuition and living expenses. She fumed. After all these years, they're still the same rotten bunch. I smiled bitterly. It's fine. I stopped counting on them long ago. I'm just worried about my grades. They're neither here nor there. I don't even know how to study properly anymore. Sometimes I'm so disappointed in myself. Don't be sad, Catherine, my aunt whispered to comfort me. Do you know why your entrance exam results were worse than other students? It's not because you didn't work hard, but because rural education resources are naturally inferior to urban ones. You started at a disadvantage. Moreover, many city students were already taking extra classes during summer vacation, while you were still working to earn your tuition. Achieving your current ranking is actually quite remarkable. Learning ISNTA sprint, it's mountain climbing. What matters is long-term perseverance. Do you understand? Her words seemed to have a healing power, as if a drafty wound in my heart was gradually being filled with cotton. ISNT, what people need most when they're suffering and helpless, just a word of understanding and support. I've just been lonely for too long. I wiped my damp eyes and nodded earnestly. I understand. Thank you, Auntie. Don't worry, I'll study hard just like you did back then. She smiled. Annie believes you can do it. After that, I often kept in touch with my aunt. She never found me bothersome and frequently offered me help. Not just with words, but also materially. On my birthday, I received a package from my aunt. The package wasn't large, but its contents were quite precious. A large box of pen refills and an exquisite notebook. A bulging envelope containing her handwritten letter and exactly 2,000 yuan in cash. A Hello Kitty flip phone complete with a working SIM card and charger. Feeling their substantial weight in my hands, I was deeply moved. Auntie seemed genuinely worried I might refuse, going so far as to explain in detail within her letter. Catherine, you must accept these things properly. No polite refusals. You can repay me later, but if you don't take them, I'll have to assume you no longer recognize me as your aunt. The stationery is to motivate you to study, while the cash is to ease your financial burdens, and the phone is for us to stay in touch long term. If you need anything in the future, don't hesitate to ask for my help. Your aunt has no other expectations or demands of you, only that you keep studying. Education may not be the only path, but it's our best one. Keep going, and I'll be waiting for your good news. I believed her words wholeheartedly. This wasn't empty encouragement, but wisdom forged through years of her own struggles. I wrote a long letter of gratitude promising her I will give it my all and never give up. With my aunt as help, my school life became much more comfortable. Though far from wealthy, I at least reached the standard of an average student. I could afford meat, eggs, and milk in the cafeteria, eating my fill. At every meal, that bone-deep hunger finally began to fade, and my body gradually grew stronger and more robust without me even noticing. I remember there was a long jump marker on the playground. I used to only manage 5 meters, but now I can easily reach 7 meters. I'm not sure if it's because I've grown taller, gotten stronger, or perhaps a combination of both. What surprised me even more was that as my physical condition improved, my energy and spirit returned too. During classes, I no longer feel dizzy or foggy-headed. Instead, my mind is clear, my thinking is sharp, and I'm in the best condition since the start of the semester. I could see my subtle progress in every pop quiz and weekly test. Though it might have been just a few points or a few places accumulated over time, these drops of water eventually wear through stone. Finally, by the end of term exams in the first semester of senior high, my ranking had risen to 207th in the entire grade. According to the homeroom teacher's classification criteria, those ranked within the top 200 next semester would qualify for the honors class. I'm not far from my goal now. But now another question lies before me. Should I choose the humanities or the sciences? At that time, there was a prevailing notion in school the humanities were for girls and the sciences were for boys. The reasoning was that boys were rational with strong logical thinking, while girls were more emotional with weaker logical reasoning, making them suited for different academic paths. Several top-performing female students had already chosen to study humanities. I once discussed this issue with my aunt, who clicked her tongue dismissively after hearing it. This ISNT even worth considering. Academic fields aren't designed by gender, you know. Madame Curie, right? She still won the Nobel Prize in physics. Ever heard of programmers? The world's first programmer was a woman, and your aunt here is now a programmer too. Don't listen to all that nonsense from people, just study whatever you like. But if we're talking about job prospects, I'd still recommend you take the science track. At least you won't starve. My aunt used her own life experience to show me that science indeed offers better career opportunities in society. Since I was particularly keen on making money, anyway, I obediently followed her advice and focused my studies on physics, chemistry, and biology. After all, for the poor there's no room for error in life's multiple choice questions. I've always played it safe by heeding advice. During winter break, I returned home as usual, doing household chores and looking after my younger brother while occasionally sneaking contact with my aunt. My family never paid me any attention, barely caring about my daily activities, so no one discovered my secret connection with my aunt. Yet they also never bothered to ask about my studies or whether I had secured living expenses for the next semester. The more I felt their indifference and coldness, the more I became convinced that my aunt's escape was truly the right choice. 13 after school started, I managed to cover my expenses with the school's financial aid and my aunt's support. My aunt said she would continue to support me from then on and that I should focus on my studies without worrying about working hard to earn money myself. At first I didn't agree, worried that she was new to society and didn't have much money to spare. To my surprise, she burst out laughing. Silly girl, I only said I owed money to scare them off, otherwise how could they have let me leave? Your aunt may not have many talents, but making money is one thing I'm good at, and I'd never pretend to be something I'm not, so don't worry. But I'd been accepting her generosity without contributing anything for too long, and it weighed on my conscience. I asked her, why are you helping me to this extent? We've only met once, and my parents weren't kind to you at all. Perhaps this isn't something that can be explained with just the word kindness. Aunt said, calmly, consider it as repaying someone's kindness. When I first arrived in Shanghai, with nothing to my name, someone helped me too. When I asked what repayment she wanted, she simply said, just pass this kindness forward, when you can. So Catherine, that's why your aunt is helping you. Seeing you now is like seeing my past self. I couldn't help but reach out to you. If I can help you achieve your dreams, then it will count as a good deed in my life, proof that I didn't come into this world in vain. My eyes burned with unshed tears. If one day I could also possess this power to pass on kindness, how wonderful would that be? The world would surely become a better place, wouldn't it? 2 months later, during the subject division exams, I performed quite well, ranking 177th overall in my grade and 145th in science subjects. Though I couldn't compare with the top students, I still managed to secure a spot in the elite science class. The following days of study became even more arduous, with the countdown to the college entrance exam looming over everyone's heads. And I was undoubtedly one of the most diligent students in the class. Every day, without fail, she woke up at 6 in the morning, always the first to arrive at the teaching building to study. Never doze off in class. When drowsiness strikes, pinch your thigh or dig your nails into your palm. After class, I would chase after the teacher to ask questions, and my mistake notebook quickly filled up page after page. After evening self-study ended, I would go straight back to the dormitory, prop up a desk lamp, and read until lights out. At 11 before sleeping, I would review the knowledge in my mind, once more reinforcing the old while learning the new. I don't make many friends, let alone date anyone. Apart from studying, I hardly share any common topics with my classmates. I'm what they unanimously call a bookworm. She even caused quite a few amusing incidents, like reciting ancient poems from a booklet during the morning exercise break, and missing the running command, nearly getting bowled over by classmates behind her. Squatting on the toilet while solving chemistry problems, I gradually lost track of time. The moment I stood up, my legs were numb, beyond feeling the pain twisting my face into a grimace. Tired, very tired, but bitter, not at all. Striving for dreams in one's teenage years is the happiest thing I can imagine. I made rapid progress, and by my second year of high school, my scores had stabilized above 600 points. My homeroom teacher said that with just a little more effort, getting into a 211 university wouldn't be a problem. My aunt was also very happy for me and transferred a 500 yuan bonus to my card, encouraging me to keep up the good work and urging me to study hard so I could take the entrance exams for Shanghai to join her there. A bright future seemed within reach. It was one of the most radiant times of my life. But the shadows of reality soon began to close in. At 15, during my second year of high school, my younger brother Felix was about to enter middle school. His grades remained abysmal, with no sign of improvement. My parents usually pay no attention to me, but suddenly they became unusually attentive, often looking at me with affectionate eyes. Our Catherine is so smart, excelling in every subject. Then they would pretend to scold my brother, look at you, you're not even half as good as your sister. I thought they had suddenly changed their ways until they revealed their true intentions. Catherine, we always knew you'd go far. Now why don't you help your brother out and tutor him a bit? Shouldn't you be able to solve elementary school 6th grade problems? My hand, holding the ballpoint pen, froze for a moment. After a pause, I replied with a forced smile, of course, but I charge tutoring fees. My mother's expression changed instantly, nearly slapping me across the face. What kind of talk is that? Are you really complaining about tutoring your own younger brother? Dad quickly stepped in to stop her, forcing an awkward laugh. Good girl, Catherine, your mother's just speaking in anger. Don't take it to heart. Tell you what, you want that red winter coat. Last New Year, if you can bring your brother's grades up, I'll buy it for you this year, without batting an eye. Watching him put on such an act for his son, I found it utterly ridiculous and coldly refused. First of all, I've grown up. The red coat was years ago. I might not even fit into it now. Secondly, you're my father. Why should there be all these conditions for you to buy me something? If you truly meant it, you wouldn't have made me wait this long. Lastly, I'm just Felix's sister, not his nanny or teacher. I'm not responsible for his life. Do whatever you want, scold him, hit him. But this is who I am, and I want to change. I've endured plenty of punishments at home, since childhood, mostly because of Felix. Just because I couldn't fight back when I was little doesn't mean I have to swallow my pride now. As expected, they couldn't keep up their pretense any longer and flew into a rage, ready to beat me. But I didn't back down at all. I grabbed the fruit knife from the table and challenged them. Come on then, let us see who kills who first. They were so frightened they called me crazy, but from then on never mentioned me tutoring Felix again. Instead, they often warned him, your sister seems a bit unhinged, stay away from her. Unhinged, they made me this way. Felix performed terribly on his middle school entrance exams, so our parents made him repeat 6th grade. The whole family was worried about him, even considering spending money and pulling strings to get him into a good school. I was different. I suddenly developed a fever just days before the college entrance exams, and none of them had a clue. Only my aunt called me, gently comforting me, "Just do your best, Catherine, don't stress too much, and don't blame yourself." At that moment, I really wanted to reach through the phone and hug her. I mustered my strength and completed the exam, but being ill still affected my performance somewhat. I seemed to have misremembered 2 crucial formulas. During the wait for results, I was restless with anxiety. Fortunately, that year's questions were easy. When the scores came out, I breathed a sigh of relief. 628 points, right on par with my usual performance. I shared the good news with my aunt and began filling out my college applications. But then, without any warning, my family started causing trouble again. At 16, my parents suddenly locked me in the house and wouldn't let me leave. "Kathleen, be good. A high school diploma is enough for you to start working. We contacted Isaac next door next month. He'll take you with him to the garment factory in Guangdong." Do you remember Isaac? He started working right after middle school and now earns quite a lot every month. I nearly lost my mind. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why, I scored 628 points. Do you even know how many good schools I could apply to with 628 points? Why on earth should I go work in a garment factory with him? You never helped me before, fine, but why are you trying to ruin me now? Do you even have the most basic conscience left? Grandma glanced at me with a sneer and locked my bedroom door. "Just because you're unlucky to be born into our family, your aunt did well in school too. But did she get to attend high school? You all deserve it." A surge of anger rushed to my head as I kicked the door and cursed at her. "You old hack, have you no shame? How dare you bring up my aunt? Don't you dare let me out or I'll strangle you." They ignored me and started discussing outside about sending Isaac and me to work in the southern factories. Isaac was initially hesitant. Catherine scored so well, why should she suffer in a factory? Such high marks, I wouldn't even dare dream of them. The old woman smiled eagerly. "What's the use of a girl studying? Anyway, better to start earning early. Besides, Haven Tea, you always liked Catherine. You can nurture your feelings there, then come back to marry and have kids. How wonderful." Then Isaac agreed. I was so disgusted I could vomit. Isaac has bullied me since childhood, lifting my skirt, pulling my hair, tearing up my homework. What does any of that have to do with liking me? That old hack tried to ruin Annie back then, and now she wants to ruin me. How dare she ever claim Andy wronged her? By evening I had barely calmed down and quietly reached out to Andy. I briefly explained the situation and asked her to help me fill out the application first, no matter what this couldn't be delayed. As for the rest, I'd figured out slowly on my own. The moment I sent the message, my heart ached. At a time like this, I was still making Aunt worry about me. Looking around, it seems she's the only one in this world I can rely on and trust. Auntie replied to me quickly. "Don't worry about the college application. I'll handle it on the computer for you. Just send me your examinee ID number and ID card number. Also, these days, don't confront them directly. Let them lower their guard first. I'll come get you before they send you away. Remember to take your ID card and household register with you in advance. Don't panic and don't soften your heart. If I could escape back then, so can you." I stared at the tiny phone screen, tears streaming uncontrollably down my face. I realized that even if I gave everything I had, I could never repay my aunt's kindness toward me. My aunt filled out my college application for Shanghai, with majors in physics and chemistry, subjects I was genuinely passionate about. At home, I played the role of an obedient daughter who had given up resisting. My parents gradually let their guard down, occasionally even permitting me to go out for walks, but only within the distance from the door to the front yard. It's no different from being tied up like a dog. Isaac came to see me, unable to hide his excitement. "Little sister Catherine, when we go to Guangzhou together, I'll take you to eat rice noodle rolls and see the Canton Tower. It'll be so much fun. In a couple of years, we'll get married, first a son, then a daughter, and the whole family will live in perfect harmony." My nails dug into my palms as I struggled to resist the urge to punch him. Perfect harmony, yes, quite the dreamer. As the departure date drew nearer, everyone's faces were beaming with joy. I grew increasingly restless, needing to reread my aunt's messages 800 times each night before I could sleep. "I'll be waiting for you at the doorstep at 5 a.m. on the 15th. Bring your ID card, household register, and other personal belongings. Sneak out without letting them notice. Then I'll take you to Shanghai." I knew this was my only chance. If missed, it wouldn't come again. On the pre-dawn of August 15th, when I was 17, I woke unusually early. Even in summer, the sky was just beginning to lighten at this hour. I tiptoed out of bed and down the stairs, moving with extreme caution at every step. The mere 10-meter distance from my room to the front door suddenly felt as endless as the journey to the Western heaven for Buddhist scriptures. Fortunately, no one noticed me holding my breath. I slowly pushed open the front gate and saw a figure by the roadside that was both familiar and strange. She rode a motorcycle wearing a helmet that obscured her face, but I recognized her at once. It was Auntie. Suppressing my pounding heart, I was about to step forward when a shrill voice suddenly rang out behind me. "Kathleen, where do you think you're running off to?" Damn, that old hag up so early today. Her withered hand gripped my wrist tightly as she began shouting hysterically, "Someone come quick, this wretched girl is trying to run away." My heart nearly leapt out of my chest in terror, and I immediately kicked her hard. Then I sprinted toward Annie and jumped onto the back of her motorcycle. "Auntie, let us go." The old woman was still wailing on the ground when the engine roared twice, carrying us far away. The village remained tranquil at this moment, with faint orange-red dawn light breaking on the distant horizon, illuminating the dark green valleys. It also lit up my aunt's smiling face. I clung tightly to her waist, feeling the wind against my face, laughing through my tears. I don't think I've ever felt this exhilarated in my entire life. Auntie, I had no idea you could ride a motorcycle too. You're amazing. You actually came to save me, Auntie. I was so scared at home. Woo. She arched her eyebrows, eyes crinkling with mirth. Of course your auntie here can do anything. I always keep my word. We didn't dare to delay returning the motorcycle in town before taking a bus all the way to the city, then boarding a flight to Shanghai before nightfall. Only when my body left the ground did I finally feel at ease. At this altitude of thousands of feet, those who sought to control me could never catch up now. From then on, like my aunt, I became one of the freest birds in the world. 18, my aunt took me to her home in Shanghai. It was a modest-sized apartment, but tidy and clean, radiating warmth. She had already prepared all the toiletries and daily necessities I needed, letting me move right in. That night, I finally slept soundly, free from nightmares about being forced by my parents to work in Guangzhou, then marrying Isaac and bearing his children. Lying beside me is my aunt, the person who treats me best in this world. My aunt took a few days off and took me around the neighborhood. The first place we went to was the Oriental Pearl Tower. Standing on the observation deck at the top floor, looking down at the view, I suddenly remembered the wish I made when I was 13. A surge of emotions overwhelmed me. Catherine, you've made it. You haven't betrayed all the bitterness and sweat along this journey. You even encountered an angel in your life. Her name is Janet, your own flesh and blood. 19, my aunt was extremely busy with company affairs and returned to work shortly afterward. She's now a typical urban white-collar worker, leaving early and returning late with her bag, busy, yet financially independent and fulfilled. I received the admission letter from the physics department of Shanghai University and then found a part-time job at a nearby coffee shop. I had promised my aunt that I wouldn't spend another penny of hers during college. She had already helped me enough. She didn't refuse, just patted my head. I know you've got backbone, but no matter what happens, remember, I'm always here for you. After receiving my paycheck, I used part of it to buy my aunt a crystal necklace, earnestly expressing my gratitude to her. She scolded me for wasting money, but the moment she put it on, she couldn't help secretly wiping away tears. Catherine, you're a good child. Annie has never regretted helping you. I smiled and hugged her. Of course, you're my wonderful aunt too. During my 4 years of university, I applied for student loans and scholarships, so the financial pressure wasn't too heavy. During winter and summer vacations, I either took part-time jobs or internships. Combined with my decent academic performance, my resume looked quite impressive. In my senior year, my advisor recommended me for a position at a research institute. The institute didn't have complicated interpersonal relationships, which overall suited me well. Everything went so smoothly, it felt like a dream, and I owed much of it to my aunt's advice and guidance in every aspect. That summer after graduation, I treated my aunt to a lavish dinner, then stayed up all night talking with her. After drinking some red wine, I asked her a question I'd long been curious about, slightly tipsy. Annie, how did you manage to survive when you were struggling alone in Shanghai back then? From being a penniless migrant worker to where you are today, the hardships must have been unimaginable. She let out a soft sigh, gentle wrinkles forming at the corners of her eyes, because your aunt had hope in her heart, and besides, I met many kind people along the way. During my poorest days, I relied on the kindness of strangers. A woman I'd never met helped me find a job, and a Sichuan restaurant owner once treated me to lunch. Later, I worked part-time while studying for my college diploma. My roommate at the time was always careful to walk quietly and leave the light on for me, afraid of disturbing me. My university advisor was also very kind-hearted. He helped me apply for many grants, and I'm still grateful to him to this day. And you, Catherine, Auntie's warm hand rested gently on my shoulder. Remember the year I went back to my hometown? You were the only niece who came to see me off. Back then I thought to myself, even a bad bamboo can sprout a good shoot. How could my no good second brother have such a lovely daughter? From that moment on, I knew you were a truly good child, and that you'd go far in life. I naturally leaned in and nestled against her. You too, Annie, from the moment you gave me those candies, I knew you weren't the bad person they made you out to be. You simply chose the life you wanted, and what's more, you saved me. 20 these past years, I've rarely thought about my birth family or that backward little village. But whenever I recall it inadvertently, my heart feels unbearably bitter. Not only because they once hurt me, but also because in this world there are countless Catherines who never managed to escape the mountains. They're forced to drop out of school, work menial jobs, marry bare children, spending their whole lives paving the way for their brothers while being drained by their husbands' families. Most of them gradually grow numb, unconsciously accepting the brainwashing of feudal dregs, then turn to oppress the next generation of women. They muddle through life utterly unlovable, even repulsive in appearance, just like my mother and eldest aunt. Yet I've always believed this was never meant to be their fate. After working for several years, I repaid my youngest aunt's loan and my student debt, then began sponsoring some rural girls. They reminded me of my younger self, born into impoverished, harsh circumstances, yet with eyes that hunger for knowledge. I often encourage them, the world outside is vast and beautiful. You must come and see it. Fly beyond these mountains, shine brightly in every profession, and grow into strong, independent women. Then go on to inspire more girls, letting them see hope for the future and break the shackles of fate. With each generation as effort, each generation lifting the next, one day, we will create a better world. I believe this is the most perfect ending to the story. Postscript: my aunt covered her face and remained silent for a long while. Also this because of an accident. A relative who came to Shanghai for medical treatment happened to see me, secretly noted down my address and workplace, and later reported it back to them. Later, my biological parents showed up at my workplace covered in dust wailing and begging me to come home with them. I took them to a nearby coffee shop and told them to spit out whatever they had to say. During our conversation, I was gratified to learn they'd been miserable all these years. First, after I left, Isaac blamed them for breaking their agreement and beat them severely. My father couldn't get out of bed for days. Soon the whole village knew the Rome family had produced 2 unfilial daughters, leaving them too ashamed to lift their heads. Within a few years, Grandma passed away. In her final days, she became particularly eccentric and irritable, making life at home unbearable. My younger brother was no saint either. After going to school in town, he picked up all sorts of bad habits, skipping class, by climbing walls, smoking, fighting, becoming the school's most notorious troublemaker. Looking around, it turned out only Annie and I were managing to get by decently in that entire family. I performed well at the Research Institute and earned the opportunity for a government-sponsored study abroad program. Andy also climbed the corporate ladder steadily, now owning a car, a house, and living the complete pet owner life, what society would consider a successful person. Pity were both unfilial daughters, unwilling to spare the Rome family even a crumb. After listening to my birth parents' tearful pleas and confessions, I tossed them a bank card and told them to spend it, then dusted off my hands and walked away. After that, they couldn't find me anymore because I'd gone abroad. What's worse, they'd find there were only $2 left in that card. Since they've come all this way, I might as well treat them to a lollipop. I knew exactly what names they'd call me: heartless, selfish, cold, cruel. But would I regret it? Not one bit. I once saw a quote online: nostalgia is a man's odyssey, while escape is the epic carved into a woman's bones. The winds of our homeland don't lift us up, so we grew wings of our own, holding hands as we flew far away. This is our anthem. This is the epic we write for ourselves. The end.